I'm not gonna be your dad if that's what you're asking. Kid is just a nickname.
Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. Today I wanted to talk about Squadron 42 stuff, some of the information from its updates that we've gleaned over the last few months, some estimated release dates, although those release dates I will be pulling out of my ass. It's basically a load of info about Squadron 42 that they've talked about from the start of the year, my thoughts tacked on, some educated guesses, and a bit of a ramble as well. Squadron 42 is the single-player standalone experience for Star Citizen. It's going to have 3 episodes in all of which are going to be AAA games in their own right. For the purposes of this video, we're going to talk more specifically about Squadron 42 Episode 1. It's going to contain a host of A-class celebrities, including Mark Hamill, Gillian Anderson, and all that sort of jazz. They have been motion and audio capturing, translating all of those people into game, and I do have a video on some of the more general knowledge about Squadron 42 and the celebrities, and some of what the game is planning to do, which I will link down below, and it is worth watching. We are basically going to have a spiritual successor to Wing Commander, but with the best available graphics and mechanics. And it is part of the Star Citizen universe, and completing that will give you citizenship in the Star Citizen MMO. A major part of the game, Squadron 42, is its seamless nature. They don't want loading screens at pretty much any stage, other than possibly when you load up the game. It seems to me that Squadron 42 could probably be played out over quite a short period of time in-game in lore. It's possibly that they'll use sleep or getting knocked out as a transition method, but maybe there isn't any form of transition needed. Maybe it is played over quite a short period of time. But Star Citizen and Squadron 42 are very much being sold as a seamless experience. No loading screens. The idea basically is that you'll pre-briefing, be able to wander around the ship, talking to the crew, forming relationships, then go on to a mission briefing, then get to your ship from the briefing, or whatever you're supposed to do as part of that briefing. Maybe it's a transport pod for boarding or something, and then you'll travel to the mission location, perform the mission, some of which may include boarding other ships, stations, or landing on a planet, returning to your carrier, and then getting debriefed. You may have to change what carrier you're on. You may travel from an Idris to a Javelin to a Bengal. You will then start the process again, wander around your ship, talk to your crew, your wingman, whatever. The object container and platform system that they're using and currently adding to their multiplayer Star Citizen is extremely important to this kind of seamless nature, enabling them to set up levels, break them down into parts, and then only stream in what is required, basically. So they get this really high level of fidelity, the top level of fidelity that they want. And in Squadron 42, that high graphical content, that beautiful graphics, those super high levels of fidelity are much more manageable. It's in a controlled environment, and it requires a lot less work than multiplayer aspects do, such as, well, they can remove netcode, servers, unified rigs. They aren't dealing with unknown elements. They're not required. They can fake AI if they needed to. They can use scripting in a much more directed way if they have to. Because of this, a large amount of what they're working on with Star Citizen and certain ships are just not part of Squadron 42. So they don't need to get all of that Star Citizen stuff ready for a Squadron 42 release. And good, because Star Citizen is a couple of years off at least before it's going to be released. Release date-wise, for Squadron 42, there are no confirmed release dates currently at all for Squadron 42 Episode 1. They do want to release the other 2 episodes 2 years apart after Episode 1, so you get Episode 2 in 2 years, and then Episode 3 2 years after that. Educated guess-wise is that we'd have Squadron 42 Episode 1 released between the end of 2017 and mid-2018. It's not likely to be on the schedule report either, in the same way that the Alpha 3.0 and multiplayer patches are. They can't tell us a lot of the content they're working on with Squadron 42 without spoiling large sections of the game, but we're likely to get more of a firm date of release after this year's CitizenCon. Over the last few months, they've talked about testing and playthroughs of Squadron 42 that the QA department have been doing, and eliminating bugs from that as well. They've been polishing a lot of the environments, getting the new lighting groups in as well for more optimization and performance, and that's a big thing that they hammer home constantly. They are constantly improving performance. They're doing reviews of levels and areas from set dressing, action, narration, and flow of the levels, so that they can see what they need to add to certain bits of levels. Do they need to add some more set dressing or props? Do they need to polish certain bits in certain areas? Or do they need to change the way that flow happens, where enemies are engaged on a level? Is there somewhere that they're bottlenecking? Code-wise, they've been doing lots of house cleaning to Squadron 42. They're moving away from Lua and flow graph and more onto integrated approaches, such as converting over from flow graph to their new mission system, which is more robust and ready for object containers. Flight balance changes. So this is kind of a semi-hot topic. They're always working on flight balance for Star Citizen and weapon balance. These changes don't mean that Squadron 42 will suffer. It's not as if they don't need to wait to develop Squadron 42 and get the level flow done. They seem to have settled on the removal of cruise mode and the general flight model in game now. So we're going to be using Afterburner to get similar results as cruise mode's got before. Any changes to the actual flight model are likely just to be number changes now, which are quickly, easily tweakable in Squadron 42 as well, and they can just fiddle with some stuff. The addition of extra weapons in Star Citizen as well that aren't in Squadron 42 might not require balancing for Squadron 42, and it's quite possible that we might have different numbers for weapons and ship stats. Remember, we're all using mostly military gear as well. Players are going to be able to complete missions in different ways, manipulate objects, and get interesting gameplay, and kind of get pretty immersed in the story and world. And it is about that storytelling experience, Squadron 42. It might have some slight changes to the actual Star Citizen MMO, which is going to continuously get updated and changed and balanced even after release. Characters and animation stuff. So we've seen a lot of polish going into models in recent months, and getting a lot of stuff finished for males, females, and armor sets. They're quite far along on the new uniforms, costumes, characters, and heads for Squadron 42 as well. And they've now got a lot of stuff like that ready, polished in their builds, all being finalised. With a more focused approach recently on shoe bin miners and civilians, OMC outlaws, deck crew for capital ships, and battle dress uniforms, kind of getting those things ready. They've been tweaking grips for individual weapons, they've updated the look of the Vandal and the other alien races too, and are now animating the skinned Vandal meshes. All of that is quite important, obviously, for Squadron 42 over Star Citizen. They've also added cinematics to the game, no matter the state, so for their builds, for their playthroughs. So finished, unpolished, rough, it doesn't really matter. This gives them a better idea of the flow and overall pacing for a full playthrough of Squadron 42. This also allows them to tweak performances of scenes, faces, and audio for more context. For any additional mocap, they now have their own small motion capture system that they can set up within like an hour or two, I think it takes them. This will enable extra high quality animations in game, but also any required mocap can be done effectively quickly. They don't need to book some time in a mocap studio to do pickup mocap. Lots of work has also gone into the usables item system that they're working with for Squadron 42. So AI are going to be interacting or able to interact with any object. Seats, walls, items, lockers, repairing a system. They can access a power supply of an item and then change the batteries or remove broken items and replace them with new ones, and then restart the power supply. They're going to be able to do quite complex tasks, and the animations for that are going to look pretty good. A typical AI character from Squadron might have 1,000 or more of these motion clips. It's impossible to create unique animation clips for every given situation, although they obviously would like to, but that would take a lot of time. They've developed a blending technique called Parametric Blending. This combined with clever pathing, a 24-hour NPC life cycle, so they actually have jobs that they do within 24 hours. They will go and eat at certain times, they'll go poo at certain times, that sort of stuff, as part of their subsumption system, they can have NPCs walking, turning, moving around ship, turning corners in realistic, very realistic manners, and use appropriate animations and actions based on their roles, time of day. They will get to a job, they'll get to a role. They might be in engineering for 4 hours of their day before moving to the mess hall, that sort of stuff. They've also talked a little bit about their Derby studio from Foundry 42. It's a little extra studio that focuses on face and body animations. The last thing we heard from them is they've done over 500 facial animation files that can now, or are now being implemented into Squadron 42. So they're making a lot of progress. They're putting a lot of effort into Squadron 42, as you might expect. A lot of what they've been doing recently as well, in general, is polish performance improvements, reducing build sizes, as well as reviewing the cinematics in general for Squadron 42, just making sure everything's appropriate and right. Another part of this is the conversation system as well, and how players interact in Squadron 42 with NPCs. Conversations will be handled with the new interaction system, where you'll be able to say stuff contextually based on your situation, who and what you're talking to, and what you're looking at. NPCs will react to you based on whether you're moving away, changing position, what have you done with them in the past, are you looking at them directly in the face when you're talking to them. There are dynamic camera effects and stuff that they've talked about that they want to put in as well, that they may use, so that you can see that when a conversation is initialized, rather than restricting what you do freedom-wise, because you can just walk off, you can do tasks while you're talking to someone. It might change your FOV a little bit, it might blur your depth of field, that sort of stuff. They want it to feel filmic and cinematic, but they don't want it to have that restriction of freedom. More recently, in regards to environments, they've delved deeper into the look and feel of the coil, which plays a major role in the first campaign. They've used powerful fluid simulations to help achieve the look that they want for that area. The coil is also known as Odin 1 or the Odin Cluster Alpha, and is thought to be the remains of the first planet in the Odin system. It has a settled moon nearby. The coil itself is characterized by swirling clouds of planetary fragments, energy pulses and surges, as well as pirates. It's also where one of the Shubin mining outposts operates. And with that in mind, Shubin Mining Station is talked about a lot in regards to Squadron 42, in like the monthly reports and that sort of stuff. It's where you'll meet Randall Graves, who's the security chief there. It's a massive structure and part of the game. It's getting its lighting updated at the moment, and everything else switched over to that new light group stuff, and they've been finalising the Shubin environments as well there. So they've completed large amounts of text-based needs of Squadron 42 as well, for terminals, Galactopedia entries, lore and stuff that's in game. They have a system for handling over 1,200 pages of script for Squadron 42 that includes all storylines as well as wild lines. The system will be able to pull lines based on player action and interaction for appropriate situations, but also randomise the potential of wild line responses so that NPCs aren't repeating the same thing every time. They use a dialogue tool as well called WordUp to help manage these spoken lines. But there's a lot of script for Squadron 42 and a lot of interaction and potential for different playthroughs every time you play Squadron 42, because of the just because that sometimes things are going to be said different, NPCs might make slightly different decisions, but you can play through totally different. You walking around the ship and talking to the NPCs before a game might drastically change what happens during a fight, or who you bring with you. Some people might die, some people might not. It's that sort of stuff. A lot of Squadron 42 will be in military variants of ships like the F-7A, the military Hornet, and we're going to see a lot of ships that we didn't know existed from both human and alien sides, I suspect. A lot of Squadron 42 as well will be aboard big ships like the Idris, Javelin and Bengal, and we've seen lots of updates in these ships over the last few months, and we've heard in March, in fact, that they were polishing up and finishing a lot of those capital ships off, and finishing off even some of the Vandal capital ship fleet. In fact, more recently again, we saw a Vandal attack in an ATV where a king ship and a driller jumped in and blew some stuff up. The interiors of these Vandal ships, this like giant king ship, don't necessarily need to be completed, or only small areas might need to be completed that you can see into the ship, or you might have a mission where you board or something onto a larger Vandal ship. If it is not required for you to land on them, or whatever, for Squadron 42, then there's no point in them existing. If you can't do it, there's no point in putting these interiors in. So these large city ships might only get completed interior-wise with Star Citizen in the future, or Squadron 42 Episode 2, or something like that. We have seen the exterior of the driller in a video too. Another major thing that they wanted to perfect, actually, was takeoffs and landings on these large ships. Deck crews moving around, actually telling you what's going on, and where to take off and where to land. They wanted an air traffic control system that they've actually been developing so that takeoffs and landings are more unified with the Star System mechanics, and in this situation it's smart to do so, but you're not going to have problems landing in a moving ship. It's all going to be very, very smooth, seamless, and kind of part of the action, because that whole Squadron 42 experience is that you're constantly playing the game. There's no downtime, there's no break of that seamless nature. They do have work still to do. with Squadron 42. They talk about soft and rigid body simulations, destruction, particle effects, and scene setups, and lots of cinematics. Lots of stuff's going to need polish. Tweaks to levels and flow, but a large amount of Squadron 42 is now ready and complete. They've gone from a more... They've basically gone for this like long-term approach when it comes to developing tools, modular sets, scenery, and for their games in general, for their procedural tech and distribution. CIG are extremely overly highly fidelity led. They like to polish, they like to rework, and they try and make perfect with graphics and animations. I do believe now, though, that we are on the last stretch. We're on the home stretch in regards to Squadron 42 Episode 1 anyway. In regards to VR support, because I know this question gets asked a lot, Squadron 42 and Star Citizen, they do plan to support VR, and it's much more likely to go for Star Citizen's Squadron 42 than Star Citizen itself to start with anyway. So you'll see it in Squadron 42 first, almost certainly. I know they are keeping VR in mind, and they are planning to support all major headsets, but we'll have to wait and see exactly when they implement that feature, though. It's possible that it could be after release of the game. That's my expectation, but we'll have to wait and see. It's very possible that they've been working on it all along, or at least more recently. And as an afterthought, last year we were I was disappointed by the lack of the vertical slice that was supposed to be at CitizenCon. It was cut just 2 days before the event. This year, CIG have really need to stand up and hype us with dates about this game. They might need to release a demo. At very least, we want to see a polished version of that vertical slice. So this is CIG's time to shine this year's CitizenCon when it comes to Squadron 42 based stuff as well. Obviously, Gamescom is sooner. Typically, they don't show much, if any, of Squadron 42 stuff at Gamescom, but I might be surprised. Every month, we give away a ship. For June, it's a Freelancer DUR or DUR, donated by the Epic Stormfire 962. All you need to do is be subscribed to my YouTube channel and comment on any of my Star Citizen videos during that month. If you have any questions for me, or about Star Citizen, or about Squadron 42 in general, please message them below. A special thanks to all my Patreons who allow me to create the amount of content I do. If you are interested in becoming a Patreon, then links to that and everything else we've talked about below. You are awesome people. Thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, as it really does help me, and I will see you in the verse.
All right, gentlemen, fire her up.